When Grant turned south from the wilderness, the men knew at once this campaign was unlike any before. No retreat toward Washington, no pause for burial, only marching again through smoke and dust toward Spotsylvania courthouse. The columns wound miles long, infantry, stumbling cavalry, scouting artillery wagons, rumbling in endless line. The air still stank of burned wood from wilderness, but the road ahead promised no respite, only more struggle. Lee shadowed, move for move. His veterans marched fast, cutting across shorter roads. They meant to seize crossroads at Spotsylvania before Union could brisk skirmishes. Erupted on May 8th, cavalry clashed sabers flashing in narrow lanes. Infantry hurried to support. Regiments collided at Laurel Hill. Confederates dug in behind log breastworks, repelling Union charges. Men fell by hundreds, ground carpeted with blue coats. The crest became thorn-lodged in throat of Army of the Potomac. Grant grim pressed forward. He ordered repeated assaults, though slope steep and work stout. Again and again brigades surged up, only to be shattered by volleys. Muskets cracked like storm hail. Logs smoked from impact of bullets. Cannon fired double charges into faces of climbing lines. Still men returned their officers shouting their colors, beckoning. Yet Hill held defiant blood, soaking earth until even generals admitted. Storming would cost army entire strength. So began siege within forest. Men dug trenches deep, winding through clay. Redoubts rose gabions, woven artillery placed to rake approaches. Soldiers who had marched now took shovels. Their fingers blistered faces, streaked with dirt. They cut timber, dragged it to works, hammered stakes. The landscape transformed into labyrinth of earthworks stretching miles. War here became spade as deadly as rifle. The days filled with constant skirmish. Snipers perched in trees, fired at any head above parapet. Bullets hummed without pause. Soldiers moved, crouched bent double to fetch water. One wrote that air itself seemed filled with lead. When rain came, trenches turned rivers. Mud swallowed boots. Men cursed yet clung to cover. Sharpshooters aimed deadly, a cup raised at wrong angle, brought ball through wrist or jaw. At night, pickets lay so close, voices carried between lines. Some cursed across darkness, others traded news, sometimes even coffee or tobacco, before returning to kill each other at dawn. The men joked bitterly, "We are neighbors in hell." Grant studied enemy lines with quiet intensity. His cigar tip glowed as he listened to engineers. They pointed to sectors shaped like bulge, the mule shoe salient. If taken, it would crack whole position. Orders whispered, "Prepare for assault on morning of May 12th. Hancock's 2nd Corps would spearhead columns before dawn." The soldiers sensed gravity. They sharpened bayonets, cleaned muskets, wrote brief notes in flicker of lantern. One sergeant wrote, "I feel tomorrow we march into jaws of furnace, yet we go without trembling, for we trust him," meaning Grant. For Army had learned this, commander would never pull back, only drive forward no matter cost. Before dawn of May 12th, rain fell steady, soaking coats, muskets, cartridge boxes. Men of Hancock's 2nd Corps rose from mud. In silence, bayonets fixed columns forming like shadows. They whispered brief prayers. Some kissed packets of letters tucked into blouses. Drums silent orders carried by low voice. At 4:30, signal guns boomed through mist. Lines surged forward into dark woods. Surprise complete, Confederate pickets brushed aside. Blue tide rolled across fields into mule shoe salient. Gray defenders, stunned, overwhelmed batteries captured men taken by thousands. General Johnson seized in his tent. Whole brigades swept back by flood of bayonets. Union soldiers cheered, breathless. They had cracked fortress. But mule shoe shaped like horseshoe invited counterattack. and Confederates rushed every brigade into breach. Columns collided in choking fog. Rain turned ground to paste. Mud sucked boots, swallowed fallen muskets, fouled from wet. Yet men rammed charges with fists. Fired point blank across works. Bayonets thrust through logs. Men grabbed muzzles, wrestled like beasts. I saw two opponents locked hands on rifle, neither willing to release until ball discharged, killing both at once. Logs piled breast high became line of slaughter. Men fired over under around them. Smoke so thick, faces inches apart, eyes, red mouths foaming with curses and prayers. Bullets chopped saplings to splinters. Trees 18 inches thick, cut down by sheer volume of fire. Roots torn trunks toppled, crushing wounded cannon dragged by hand into mire. Fired double canister, so close blast hurled men backward in sprays of mud flesh bone. Hours passed, rain never ceased. Works ran with water-stained red. Groans filled air. Men stood in trench, shoulder to shoulder, dead pressed against living corpses. Formed wall over which comrades fired. One officer wrote, it was like butchery yard, blood reaching ankles. The term bloody angle born that day. Grant rode near, silent, his coat drenched. He received news of capture. Thousands prisoners, but also of line locked in inferno. He ordered pressure maintained. Everywhere along salient assaults hammered. Confederates clung with fury. Lee himself rode front, urging men rally. Save your country, he cried. Hats lifted, voices answered, though many fell before words faded. By afternoon, combat reached pitch beyond measure. Regiments fed piecemeal into angle ground, too narrow for order. Men clambered onto parapet, only to be shot, stabbed, hurled down again. Muskets so hot, stocks charred. Soldiers used rocks, knives, bare hands. Screams merged with thunder of volleys. Lightning of muzzle flashes lit. Faces ghastly, white crimson streaked. Rain washed blood into rivulets running downhill, like tributaries of unseen river. Night approached, yet battle did not pause. Torches glowed through mist, illuminating faces twisted beyond recognition. Men fired blindly at flashes yards away. No man could count casualties. Dead stacked like cordwood bodies used as shields. Mud and gore, indistinguishable soldiers sank to knees from exhaustion, yet rose when pushed by comrades forward still. Through night of May 12th, the battle raged without pause. Torches sputtered, rain hissed against flames, but musketry never ceased. Soldiers fired by sound. Alone, flashes guiding their aim. Smoke clung under canopy, choking every breath. The angle became slaughter. Pen no respite, no silence. Groans and cries mixed with thunder of volleys, like storm that would not end. Men clung to works slippery with blood. Logs slick, so soldiers grasped corpses for grip. A living man braced against body of fallen comrade, shoulder to shoulder, until volley struck him too. Piles of dead, rose breast-high defenders crouched behind them, as cover shots fired so close, powder burned faces, blackened skin, eyes, wide teeth bared through soot and mud. Rain diluted blood, but could not cleanse stench. Steam rose sickly from heaps of bodies. Accounts spoke of muskets loaded dozen times in frenzy barrels, so clogged they burst. Soldiers seized enemy rifles mid-fight, kept firing until hands blistered. Bayonets snapped, blades bent. Men fought with clubbed stocks, rocks, knives, bare fists. One officer wrote never before had he seen humanity sink to such savage contest. Another swore that even beasts of field would not have endured it. I saw a tree nearly 2 feet thick, cut down by bullets alone. Its trunk gnawed until toppled. Crashing across trenchmen beneath, crushed beyond recognition. Roots spread like arms over heap of dead. Around it, mud churned knee-deep. Soldiers stumbled, slipped, pulled themselves up by seizing branches, already slick with gore. The forest itself mutilated as though nature punished by man's fury. At intervals, fresh brigades shoved forward into maelstrom. Faces pale, eyes hollow, knowing fate before them. Yet they went. Orders curt, no turning back. Officers pushed with swords drawn. Colors raised high, though staffs shattered again and again. Flag bearers cut down their replacements, seizing banner before it touched ground. By dawn of May 13th, defenders still held fragments of works, but cost unbearable. Confederates rotated regiments through angle. Each hour men emerging, dazed faces gray, with powder streaked with rain. Some stumbled, blind ears deafened by ceaseless roar. Prisoners taken near collapse. Some begged for bullet rather than return to hell behind logs. Surgeons behind lines overwhelmed. Tents overflowed with wounded men lay in mud, waiting turn. Some died, whispering prayers, others cursing fate. Piles of amputated limbs rose higher than tables. Buzzing of flies, constant though rain fell still. Nurses wept quietly as they worked, hands trembling yet steady enough to tie arteries. Grant received word of carnage, yet ordered pressure maintained. He believed Lee's army bleeding faster every hour. Lee in turn refused withdrawal, determined to hold Muleshoe. Though works collapsing around him, his face lined deeper than ever, eyes dark hollows. Yet his men cheered as he rode by, lifted by stubborn faith in leader who shared their peril. As correspondent, I wrote by lantern, light words blurred by rain. I can scarce describe day. Men turned to machines of death. Woods became cauldron. Life lost measure beyond numbers. Humanity itself, drowned in mud and blood. By morning of May 14th, musketry slackened at last. The angle once cauldron of fire lay hushed, except for groans of wounded and crackle of smoldering logs. Confederates pulled back to shorter line, abandoning salient Union soldiers, crept into ruins to find ground littered with corpses. So thick path could not be stepped without treading on flesh. Breastworks collapsed beneath heaps of dead logs, splintered trees, shattered air, foul with stench of powder blood smoke. Men wandered dazed, not caring for orders. Some stared at hands trembling, unable to loose grip of ramrod. Others slumped against mud walls, eyes empty. Union officers tried to reform ranks, but soldiers moved as if dream walked through nightmare. Too much seen, too much endured. Rain washed trenches into streams, red as rust, pools filled with cartridge papers floating like leaves. The angle earned name bloody with justice. Accounts later swore more men fell here in single day than many whole battles. Combined losses tens of thousands. Some brigades ceased to exist. Rolls called with no answer. Companies shrank to squads. Colors riddled with holes yet still borne high. Survivors spoke in whispers as though voices might wake dead again. Grant refused to call it victory, yet refused defeat. His resolve steady. He wrote to Washington, "We have now ended the 6th day of very hard fighting and expect to fight it out on this line if it takes all summer." His words spread through camps like scripture. Soldiers muttered weary smiles. They knew now there would be no retreat, no turning back until Richmond taken or army destroyed. Lee held still lines shortened but intact. His men battered clung with grim resolve. For Confederacy, Spotsylvania, proof of endurance. For Union, proof of inexhaustible will. Two armies locked bleeding, neither able to strike final blow. The campaign turned into war of attrition. Each day bleeding strength, wealth, hope from nation. I walked through aftermath. Flags planted in mud, marking where brigades had stood. Chaplains reading prayers over pits, dug hastily. Surgeons still sawing groans, still rising. Horses, carrion birds circling overhead. Smoke columns fading, yet smell clinging for days. One soldier whispered to me, Sir, if there be a hell, I have seen it, and it is this place. Spotsylvania taught lesson. Harsh war no longer charges across open fields, but days of grinding against works. Men behind logs, earth, breastworks, trenches, firepower multiplied slaughter. Beyond courage, endurance became only currency, and both sides spent it, without count. In notebook that night I wrote, "The bloody angle will stand in memory, as symbol of war, as descent from glory into furnace. No tale of banners or cavalry here, only mud blood, rain endless death. Yet from such horror the campaign moves on, for Grant will not turn back. The Republic is fate bound now, to resolve stronger than suffering,